Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Shalom and good morning. I am Rabbi Gary Gans. I'm the Rabbi Emeritus at Congregation Beth Tikva. And I'm not the rabbi originally slated to be here. That was Rabbi Nathan Weiner, who had an emergency back surgery a couple of days ago and asked me to stand in for him. He and I worked together for a number of years and grew to respect each other. And he is recuperating and is doing well and sends his regards. But I am his emeritus, but today I'm his backup. I'm sad but honored to be with you. Ma'ayan HaChayim, wellspring of life. We come together sharing our sorrow to commemorate the life of Barry. We recall the blessing of his life. We thank God for all that was good and true in his life, and for the precious memories which shall endure. Eternal God, his family, bowed in grief, seek light to dispel the dark gloom that threatens to overwhelm them. Be gracious to those who mourn, for they are in distress. Bless them with your compassion. Ease their burden of sorrow, and send them light and peace. For it is written, fear not, as I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will sustain you with my power. And let us all say, Amen. You saw that at the very beginning of this ceremony, we created a very private space. And we cut the ribbons for Gail, Chelsea, Danielle, Harvey, and Randy, his brothers. And you'll notice when you see them later that the two daughters are wearing the ribbons on their left-hand side, as tradition instructs us through thousands of years of deaths. It is thought that at the death of a parent, the heart needs additional support, and therefore the ribbons are placed on the side one thought was where the heart was, totally on the left. And every other relationship of Gail, Harvey, and Randy, wear it on the right-hand side. It's not a mistake. It's done by an informed awareness of where we have been for thousands of years. You'll also notice the ribbons are only partially torn. I like to mention at funerals that they're not torn all the way across. There is scar tissue. There is a sense of memory that is painfully held onto, but is love and compassion closest indeed to the heart, or the cloth is intact. That will not disappear. That is not torn. But the tear that's partial does represent the immediate loss that they and all of you feel. I offer Psalm 23, an excerpt in the original Hebrew and then an English interpretation. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, benodesha yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yanachaleni. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. God has me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside the still waters. God guides me on paths of righteousness and revives my soul for the sake of his glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set the table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. In addition to the names I've mentioned who are wearing the ribbons, there are, of course, the partners, spouses, Jake with Chelsea, Mike with Danielle, Sue with Harvey. And we also reach out to the next generation, to the grandchildren, to Nathan and the newborn Eliana. And God willing, there's one more on the way for Danielle and Mike. We wish them health and strength and success. We also want to acknowledge his sisters-in-law, Janice with Robert, Barbara with Greg, and I also want to mention Jan as part of the included family. Barry was a giver, offered his time, his energy, and one of those resources was the Jewish Family and Children's Service. And they've included a passage for me to include this morning, which I do with great honor. Barry Beran started volunteering with JFCS during COVID. The demand for food was high, and we were not open to the public. We called out for volunteers who were willing to deliver groceries to clients' homes. Barry answered the call. Not only did he step up, he spoke with Mary Seligman almost every day for the last 4 years. Barry worked 5 days a week, tirelessly to serve those who are food insecure. He was willing to go anywhere, which is a big ask, since we cover Burlington, Camden, and Gloucester counties. He went to very remote locations providing this valuable service that our clients desperately needed. He performed with grace and eagerness to serve. Murray Seligman stated that he came to the pantry every day with a smile on his face and was always pleasant. If he ever had a bad day, he certainly didn't share it. Gail had commented that he got more out of volunteering than the clients benefited from his deliveries. His presence will be sorely missed. His light was very bright and extinguished much too soon. We will all remember Barry's selflessness and spirit. May his memory be for a blessing. Now, as a giver, a helper, and one who wanted to help sustain others, in case you don't know or haven't heard yet, Barry's body was donated for scientific research, for medical advancement, so that others who are in training will benefit from his physical presence. His emotional presence, his presence that was affected on you and by all of those here, that won't end, that won't change. But an opportunity for his body to support others is certainly a very great imperative, a mitzvah that even in death he is still performing. I have a text that I share with many members of our congregation at times of their death, even members of my own family. This was written several thousand years ago by a rabbi and scholar named Ben Sirach. I'll offer his text in translation so that it's easily accessible. And he wrote, "We are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead. Hide not your grief. Do not restrain your mourning. But remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source of peace, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than lingering illness. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good name, a good reputation, endures forever. As you came into this chapel, you were filled with a sense of sadness and gravitas over Barry's death. But also I sensed a feeling of joy at reconnecting with each other and remembering Barry's memories. I heard some of you sharing with each other, representing a full spectrum of feeling and emotion taking place right now, right here. And that is reflected also in the text I'm going to offer from the book of Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Indeed, it is a time to speak and to share, and I call first on Gail.
I met Barry in 1979 in the library at the University of Baltimore School of Law while studying for finals. Actually, Barry was sitting with his legs up on a table reading newspapers. He was in his last year, but I had just finished my first semester. I was frantically hunched over my books when some guy, not Barry, walked over to me and said, "Take off your glasses." I was a bit stunned, but okay. I took off my glasses. And this guy said, "You look better without your glasses." I put them back on. Then Barry walked over. He said, "You look good with or without your glasses. Would you like a cherry lifesaver?" It was love at first sight. One day at my Baltimore apartment, Barry's older brother, Harvey, called. He said, "I would like to speak with the girl who has mesmerized my brother." Barry's secret was out. After finals, Barry asked me to go to Boston with him for New Year's Eve to celebrate with his Boston University undergraduate friends. Too soon, I thought. I went home to my parents and told my mom all about Barry. "Why didn't you go to Boston with him?" she said in an uncharacteristically modern way. Then, while I was visiting a college friend in Maryland, Barry called my parents' house. My mother screamed in the phone and gave him my friend's phone number. He called me there. "Why did your mother scream in the phone when I called?" he said. My secret was out. I had not given my parents Barry's phone number. My parents' phone number. He searched Maryland phone books while he was in Boston and kind of guessed that was my parents' house. When my mom learned of this, she said, "He's the one." How right she was. Sexy, gentle, kind, so funny, smart, fun-loving, selfless. He met and loved my giggling sisters, Mom, Dad, and very outspoken Grandma, who all loved him right back. We got married. I moved to New Jersey with him. I transferred to Rutgers Law School. I got through the bar exam because of Barry. Barry worked at some firms, and when I got a job, Barry opened up his own private practice. My father, a lifelong public servant, nervously asked, "He quit his job?" Barry helped so many people, day and night. He accepted baklava as payment when a client could not afford to pay him. He helped veterans for free. He went to clients' homes who were housebound. Family, the most special friends, 2 beautiful girls, their school activities, their sports teams, competitive dance, 2 bat mitzvahs, 2 weddings, 2 amazing sons-in-law. Empty nest. I returned full-time to state government employment. Movies, rock concerts, The Boss, Broadway, the Flyers, the Phillies, the Sixers, the Eagles, working out. Ocean City, pizza, desserts, politics, the JCC, lover of Judaism, loving relatives, loving friends, holiday celebrations, retirement. Barry got a part-time job at AAA corporate office, helping members understand their policies. His co-workers there became a true family, not just work family. What a fun, loving, caring group of people they are. As you've heard, Barry loved volunteering at the food pantry. He not only delivered food, he delivered kindness. Barry helped any friend, anytime, with anything. He took care of me for 43 years. He was my rock. He made me laugh. He always taught me new things. Loving husband, loving father, loving grandfather, loving friend. He spread love all around. It's hugging me right now. Barry's legacy is, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Thank you. Okay.
Gail's father would call Barry a gentle wit. Neighbors are all saying similar things about him currently. Someone said that there is a river of tears flowing in South Jersey. We understand. Now call on Chelsea and Jake.
Oh, that was a tough act to follow, Mom. All right. I knew I should have not been a millennial about this. Okay. So, hi, everyone. I really appreciate all of you being here, and I think something that has brought me some solace and comfort over the last couple weeks is how many stories and beautiful memories that people have reached out and shared with me about my dad. And I think when you see someone and know someone so well, you know what an incredible person they are, but to hear that he's touched all of your lives as well is immensely comforting to me. So thank you for taking the time to share. As you heard my mom say, and as you know individually, my dad was a lover of life. He loved to bring joy to people at way more than he cared about finding joy himself. So I feel incredibly fortunate to be his daughter. And I think one story that I was very tickled that some folks in the AAA family heard about, and I know my close friends know about too, is when I was in 9th grade, I had a project that I had to do where I decided to transcribe a speech from FDR about Pearl Harbor. And it was pre-Google, and so I did my best to listen, and I proudly showed my dad, and there were words I couldn't figure out, but how wrong could I have been? And he took about 1 second to look at it, and then bellowed his Barry bellow, cracking up, and he asked me to explain a couple words I put in there. And I did, and he laughed again. And what became a mistake on my part turned into a holiday that we would then commemorate every year for the next 22 years. And we just commemorated it with the silliest and most special and strange gifts. And that was my dad. Instead of just a simple correction and move on with your educational pursuits, let's turn this into a decades-long holiday. And it's something that's very special to me. And Jake said we'll commemorate with Grandpa Day every year from now on. My dad also was always up for an adventure. If you haven't been a part of one, you've probably heard. He would, drive 3 hours to find the next best pizza place that was just coined by some sort of list. He became a Flyer season ticket holder with his older brother in 1987 because the story I heard is they walked around the stadium trying to get tickets for the finals and couldn't, so he said, I will never be shut out of another Flyers game. And then we went to, go to games together nearly my whole life, and also had the pleasure of sharing many of those games with some of you, and that's all from my dad. This font is very small. I feel ancient right now. There are also just so many adventures that my mom mentioned too that really formed my interests and a lot of my core values in life. He always said yes to just about everything, whether we were parasailing on vacation or hunting on a wave runner or, just we've already mentioned it a bunch of times, but sampling any food that my dad found interesting. When we drove Big Sur, he wanted to hit every single bakery in Solvang. And if you've been to Solvang, for such a small town, there are a lot of bakeries. But we couldn't leave until everyone gave my dad a chocolate chip cookie. And then these pursuits truly continued when my dad became a grandpa. He, while Nate is only about 2.5, it felt like every time he visited him, he went to the specialty toy store and spoke at length with the owners to make sure the toy that he was giving Nate was of the exact age Nate was and was appropriate for his development and fun. And I also feel extremely grateful that he was able to meet our daughter, Eliana, and know that we named her after his dad, Emmanuel. And he got to hold her a couple times. And while she won't remember, it's really important to us and I think my dad as well. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about his selflessness. As you've heard from the rabbi and my mom and everyone, really helping others was something that meant so much to him. If someone allowed him to help them, that was one of the greatest joys he could get in life. And I don't know if I'm going to step on Danny's toes, but when my dad was working, he would come home every day at lunch to have a meal with our cat because he didn't want Andy to have to dine alone. And he took that very seriously. He would leave vacations in Ocean City to spend time with Andy. It's just really a testament to his character that you didn't have to be human for my dad to care about you. It was human, feline, plant. He took care of his friends' plants when they went on vacation too, and no orchid was left unwatered. Just a really special person. It's a little hard to say, but 2 weeks ago, my dad's last act was coming to Maryland just before midnight because we needed help. And so he got in the car with my mom and drove down 2 hours, got there right before midnight. And then unfortunately everything happened the next day, but it's really just incredible that that's who he always was and always has been. Just wanted to say that my dad always had an endless supply of wisdom and humor and love, and he loved sharing that with all of us. And I just feel incredibly lucky to have been his daughter and hope to carry on everything that he's taught me and instilled in me. And I think what's really incredible for a person and sometimes a man too is he was quick to say, "I love you," and "I'm proud of you," and he really meant it. I think I liked it at the time, but now looking back, I realize how lucky I am to have heard that so often in my life from my dad. Wanted to share that. Wanted to thank him for filling our lives with so much love and laughter. And I love you so much, Daddy, and thank you for everything. Thank you.
I also have notes that Chelsea said that he cultivated, you'll pardon the pun in a moment, an interest in strawberry picking and more, and took joy in doing things together with his daughters. And I'll call on Danielle and Mike.
This is intimidating. Thank you, everyone, for coming here today to join us in honoring the life of a great man, husband, father, cat dad, brother, neighbor, grandpa, friend, and we can't forget Bruce Springsteen fan. I'm here today to speak on behalf of my wife, Danielle, the youngest daughter of Barry and Gail. Personally, I've known Barry for over 10 years, and I've been lucky enough to call him my father-in-law for 6.5 years. In that relatively short amount of time, I've witnessed, a man that showed such passion and joy in every aspect of life, and one that truly cherished every moment. Barry was definitely someone who always knew what he wanted, whether it was trips to Ocean City, Philadelphia sports, music, volunteering for the food pantry, gardening, spending time with his family and friends. He was also someone who knew exactly what he didn't want. So I wanted to share a story that will always bring a smile to my face. So while Barry and Gail were visiting Danielle and I for a weekend, we were out walking around town and stumbled upon a candy shop. As many of you know, Barry was serious when it came to finding the best chocolates and baked goods. As he usually did, he went in and bought an abundance of chocolates, at least one of every kind, and kindly asked the owner where the chocolates were from, or if they were homemade. She was very firm in refusing to tell Barry the secret, only saying they were special ordered from Pennsylvania. Danielle, being her usual persistent self, continued to ask the owner for the name of the chocolate maker, who finally caved in and said, "It's Asher's." We ran outside to tell Barry where the chocolates came from, and as we tell him the name, he instantly says, "Asher's? I hate Asher's." And throws them all into the trash. To this day, we won't touch the stuff in honor of Barry. Danielle has said many times that I remind her a lot of her dad, and I wholeheartedly cannot think of a bigger compliment that I could receive. Bearing witness to the overwhelming amount of love, respect, and joy that Barry and Gail have shown each other over the years, it has taught me more about life and love than I can put into words. We love and miss you, Barry. Your memories will live on forever.
I now call on, one by one, the two people who knew Barry the longest. And I first call on his brother Randy.
Hi, everyone. Barry was such a lifelong blessing and treasure to us all. Loving husband, wonderful father, devoted friend, confidant, and fantastic brother. My name is Randy Beran, Barry's younger brother. Whenever I was with Barry for a few minutes after he left, I always wished it was for 1,000 minutes. And whenever I was with Barry for a few hours and he left, I always wished it was for 1,000 hours. It would take all of us more than 1,000 hours to convey how he touched, loved, and filled our lives with beautiful memories. Barry was ever present at family gatherings and in our lives, and to be here speaks of the stark, unimaginable void his passing has left. We are one in holding each other close to give our love to our dear Barry. Barry lived with joy, purpose, and love, making the most of his years, creating an amazing family with children and grandchildren, living to experience the joy of his new grandchild, having great friendships and accomplishments that were important to him. Barry had so many wonderful traits: loving, funny, wise, lighthearted, smart, insightful. I'd like to talk about the funny for a bit. I will always treasure the memories of the times we laughed together. All of you knew Barry as an adult, but only a few of you knew him as a child. So I thought I would take you back about 55 or 60 years. I was a lucky recipient of his mischievous sense of humor many times, and I thought I would tell you a few. Whenever I had a fudgicle, he would say, "Rand, can I have a bite?" And he would bite the bottom of it so it would melt when I got it back. Unbeknownst to me, on one of my birthdays, he put candles on the cake that wouldn't blow out. I was blowing, he was laughing. During a snowstorm, pulling in our sled Pulling me in our sled in the back alley of our childhood home, he pulled me into the deepest snow and ditch. We both laughed so hard. We used to watch a program on TV late at night called FBI Most Wanted. It had gruesome characters. I remember one went by the aliases Chrome Dome, Old Baldy, and Big Daddy. And we used to laugh about that a lot. After one episode, Barry asked me to go upstairs to get something. When I was up there, the lights went out, which kind of unnerved me, given what we were watching. As I slowly went downstairs, I said, Bear, no response. When I passed by where we were sitting, he wasn't there. When I walked past the TV into the dark kitchen, I couldn't find him either there, which unsettled me more. As I walked back with trepidation in the dark to where we were sitting, all of a sudden I heard out of the shadows in a creepy voice, hello. I jumped 3 feet. As a family back in the 60s, our parents used to take us to Atlantic City. There was a haunted house there. It was the scariest ever. The floor would move beneath you. The walls would move. We were going through it, the haunted house, and Barry was in front, and with his mischievous sense of humor, he started walking faster and faster away from me, and I pulled on his shirt, so he wouldn't walk away from me. We had so many wonderful times together, such an amazing brother. May God hold you in the palm of his hand, and may we all see you again. We love you, Barry.
And our concluding speaker, Harvey, accompanied by Sue.
Hi, everybody. The last thing Barry and I did together was to rank our favorite chocolate cream donuts. True. If you're ever up for one of our favorite treats, I can tell you that he ranked Maggie Moose in Medford third, Piskers in Westville second, and his number one was Gallows Bakery in Marlton. Last contact I had with him was when I dropped off a piece of chocolate cake from Macmillan's, because that's the kind of thing we did for each other. Funny thing is that I never saw Barry as a younger brother. He was more like a co-equal, navigating the treachery of our childhood and then as adults. Invariably, the first comment of the many wonderful people who have reached out to me say, and you've already heard it, he was so funny, and then there's a beat, and then they say, and so kind. He was so funny and so kind and so smart and educated. I could always depend on him for information. That was bad, Gail. I'm going to start crying if I look at you. I'll say it again. I could always depend on him for information, or a quip, and for sure his love. The last thing he ever said to me was that he loved me. We were just so lucky to have him, and I am devastated to lose him. Donna, who cut Barry's hair and my hair for more than 20 years, said, he was so funny and so kind. Debbie, who cleaned our offices for so many years, said, he was so funny and a great guy. Lou Koff said, great kid. Randy Strauss said, I never saw Barry without a smile on his face and something light and funny to say. Larry Gottlieb said, I remember Barry fondly, curly hair, bright smile, and a great kid. Dave Lipschitz said, I've known Barry since we both had summer jobs with the post office in college. I always liked him. He was a great guy. Ron Sadaloff remembered this moment from our youth, and these are Ron's words. It was rare when I played hoops on your court, But once I did with the three brothers. I was not so good. And I told Barry afterwards that I always knew that Harvey could play, but I didn't know that he and Randy could also. He tapped my shoulder, and just as I was expecting him to say something to lighten my burden, he said to me with a straight face, "It's okay, Ron. We knew you weren't any good beforehand." It caught me completely off guard. Of course, he made me laugh out loud, and I can still see him smiling from his eyes. We all have Barry stories, or multiples of them. Settle back. I'm going to celebrate his life by telling you a bunch of mine that capture a big part of who he was. I hope these make you laugh and cry. Get ready. I've known Barry the longest. I remember when my mom brought him home from the hospital. It was a memorable event in the life of a 4-year-old. I saw this creature and tried to figure out what was going to happen next, but it turned out that Barry became as much my big brother as I was to him. Maybe we just complimented each other, but I always looked up to him. He was my ultimate security blanket, and he was a rock for me. Barry took in strays. He befriended the less popular, the quirky, the socially inept. He kind of collected them. He did. He had some special kind of inner goodness that made him want to do that. In elementary school, that was Keith Sewell. Keith Sewell was the original Urkel, a sweetheart of a kid. Later on, it was Vince. I will only tell you Vince's last name privately if you come up to me. I saw Vince take a 4-inch thick oak door off its hinges with one hand. But he was a pussycat with Barry. And then Barry and Gail took in the ultimate stray, Andy. Barry loved that cat. We loved going with our dad to Kineemack Stadium in North Philly to see a ball game. For those of you too young to know, that was the place the Phillies played before the vet, where you had to pay a neighborhood kid $1 to protect your car until the game was over. Our dad also started us on our love of the movies, as we would trek around the corner to the Parkside Theater on Haddon Avenue, where for a quarter we saw all of the John Wayne classics. Rio Bravo, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. Sue remembers a random night sitting next to Barry when the four of us were at the movies, which we often did when the movies were worth going to the theater for, and he whispered to her, looking at the pocketbook on her lap, "Is that Chanel?" Who knew Barry was such a fashion maven? Barry and I played lots of basketball together as kids, baseball. We played basketball too, but mostly baseball. Pretty much every day the weather and Mom permitted. I loved it when he got old enough to be an equal competitor, and that happened quickly because he was a good athlete. We lived in a semi-detached row home, and there was an alley between our houses. We didn't have any money, so we copied a game from the older boys who lived next door that I called paper ball. We would crumble newspapers in the shape of a ball and then tie it together by either Scotch tape or rubber bands, and we played baseball with a wiffle ball bat. Gosh, that was so much fun. The alley between the houses was maybe 8 feet wide, so we would pitch to each other, and then, if the ball went over the back fence, it was a home run, and if it hit the chimney, it was a triple, and so on. But we would definitely get in trouble when those paper balls went on the roof and clogged the drain. Sorry, Mom. When Barry was around 8, he picked a fight with Erskine, who was about 11. Naturally, I had to go rescue my younger brother and wound up in an ill-advised fist fight. I had my share of fights growing up in Camden, and I managed pretty much a draw in that one. But just to tell you who Barry stuck me with, a few years later, Erskine was implicated in the infamous Milkman murder in the Parkside section of Camden. Of course, today, Erskine is a very successful music entrepreneur. And his mother was our babysitter on the rare occasions when our parents went out. We had a very interesting childhood. But when I blamed our parents for some of our shortcomings, he refused to agree with me. He always said that they did the best they could. I remember coaching one of Barry's early basketball teams at the JCC. I always said he was a bulldog. He never cared about scoring. He cared about defense and rebounding. What kind of 12-year-old thinks that way? Most of us wanted to shoot. I was just so proud of him. I loved watching him play. I also loved watching him in Little League, as much as playing myself. He was on the Ducky Burt's team, and one game, he actually pitched a no-hitter. It didn't hurt that I happened to be the home plate umpire that day. Barry went to BU and loved it. I remember the day we dropped him off and watching the elevator close as my mom and I left. He had a great crew at BU, and Robin, Amy, Jim, Mike, Jerry, and the rest were very important to him. I loved going to visit him there. He took me to the Russian tea room and BU hockey games. Barry had enormous knowledge of world history. He loved a certain colorful Russian history professor, Javanovsky. Shaking head, yes. And Barry went back and visited him long after graduation. Barry often quoted Javanovsky's famous phrase, "To rest is to rust." I remember the first day I met the LG. The lovely Gail, for those of you who do not know her moniker. Some of this is a little bit repeated. Bear with me. It was at Barry's law school graduation. Gail and I had had a memorable introductory telephone call prior when I spoke to the LG and asked who was this girl who mesmerized my brother, so I can confirm the story. Barry and Gail shared a special, everlasting, lifetime partnership and have produced a wonderful and amazing family. My love always to LG and Shells and Dan and Jake and Mike and Nate and Ellie and baby boy to be. Barry and I were big Broad Street Bully fans, more repeat. For the longest time until they went corporate, good Flyers tickets were impossible to come by. Somewhere in the late 80s, apparently it was 1987, right? The Flyers were competing against the Gretzky-Messier Edmonton team in the Cup Finals, and it was the 6th game being played at the Spectrum. We wanted to go so badly that we said the heck with it, we would go down to South Philly and pay whatever it took just to get inside the arena. We walked around and around and around outside the Spectrum for about an hour, and there were just no scalpers to be had. So we finally went home, but we promised each other that that would never happen again. The next year, we managed to score third level, second row from the top, season tickets through a Ron contact, and we had those tickets for over 30 years, moving to better and better vantage points until finally we had the best seats in the house, 6 rows up, dead center ice. That was an accomplishment for a couple of kids from Camden. We loved going to those games together and taking our daughters and Sue and Gail. Everybody knows that Barry was the biggest Bruce fan, just repeating. He and Gail escorted Sue and I to my first Springsteen concert, and we loved it. Barry was also a big Jimmy Buffett fan. One night, the 4 of us took a ride down the shore and had dinner in Atlantic City, and as we were walking the boardwalk, Barry realizes that Buffett is playing at Boardwalk Hall. He walks ahead, finds a scalper, and $50 a seat later, we saw the last few songs of the concert, something only Barry would do. Barry had some very interesting eating habits. We'd go out for dinner, and he would order almost all the appetizers on the menu and then just take a few bites of each. Or he would get 3 desserts and take a bite of each. Barry had crazy food willpower. He was also a great pizza maker. Sometime around 1985, I found a building that I thought would convert nicely to offices, and I asked Barry and Gail to join me, and one of the joys of my life is that I got to share space with him almost every day for 35 years. That was just an extraordinary opportunity for the 2 of us to share our lives together. About once a week, every week, I would stick my head in his office, or he would knock on my door, and we shared stories of what was going on in our lives. Our kids, our cases, the news, politics, new movies coming out, the Phillies. We talked about everything, and I'll never forget those conversations. Barry was a terrific and cutthroat chess player and risk player, just letting you know that. I stopped playing both of those games pretty quickly because he would crush me. Barry also had no peer at the game of jumble. He was just smart and funny and kind. From Sylvan Kamens and Rabbi Jack Reamer. At the rising of the sun and at its going down, I will remember him. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, I will remember him. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, I will remember him. For as long as we live, he will too live, for he is a part of us, and we will remember him.
Hardy, you want your word? Barry has a Hebrew name, and the name will live long beyond his own mortal life. His Hebrew name is Ben Sion, Ben, which means son, Menachem, his father, and Ita, his mother. I'm going to recite a prayer now called El Malei Rachamim, God the compassionate one. Even in times of sorrow, we turn to God for strength. And I'll be using his Hebrew name in the formula of the prayer. I ask all those who are comfortable to kindly stand. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamtsei Mnuchan Chona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina. B'malot Kedoshim Toharim, Kezoharakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Ben Sion, Ben Menachem V'ita, Shalach Olamo. Began Eden Tehei Menuchato, Ana, Ba'al Harachamim, Hasdirehu Beseter Knapecha Le'olamim, Ustror Bitzror Chaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'yanuach B'shalom, Al Mishkavo V'namar, Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, the soul of Barry, Ben Sion, Ben Menachem V'ita, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May the Lord be his portion. May he rest in the tranquility of shalom, of peace. And let us say, Amen. We turn now to the Mourner's Kaddish in the booklets that you have, those in the front. This is a prayer written in Aramaic, but using Hebrew letters, spoken in the land of Israel about 2,000 years ago as the street language, the language everyone would understand. Despite being called the Mourner's Kaddish, there's no reference to sadness, no reference to death. Indeed, this is a prayer, while we will say it on Barry's behalf, it's a prayer of life and love, connection to God, who we speak about in all of God's glory, and thankfulness for our own lives. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. B'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dekol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imaru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach v'olam omei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'po'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei l'kudesha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata de'amiran bi'alma imaru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'maru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'maru. Amen. I welcome you all to be seated. Any potential memorial donations are welcome to be sent to the Jewish Family and Children's Service Food Pantry in Cherry Hill. And friends and family, those assembled, are welcome back to the home of Beth and Richard from 11:30 to 2 o'clock this afternoon. I offer the concluding prayer, Hamakom Yenechem Etchem B'tok Sha'ar Ve'lei Tzion V'Yerushalayim. May the merciful God have comfort for you all among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. And we all respond, Amen.